Hello, was macht ihr? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong and happy, physically, spiritually. Today is a very, very special day, Chof Tevis, the Yemi Lula Yortzeit of the Rambam, Moshe ad Moshe lekom k'Moshe. This is an unbelievable statement that from Moshe Rabbeinu till Reb Moshe ben Maimon, there was no one that could compare. And this week's Parsha, Vashgacha Pratis, we start learning about Moshe Rabbeinu. And we'll take lessons from Moshe Rabbeinu, and we'll see how it reflected itself in the life of the Rambam. And this coming Tuesday, Mr. Hashem, is Chof Dalet Tevis, the Yortzeit Hilule of the Alter Rebbe. And the Rebbe spoke many times of the connections between the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam. And we'll speak today about the relevance of those tzaddikim and what lessons we could take. But as usual, we'll start with a prayer. Hareini mekabel olai mitzasei shel ve'ahavta l'reacho kamoicho. I take upon myself the mitzasei of loving my fellow Jew as myself. Today we're going to speak about one of the most important topics in life. And I would suggest that probably if I went to Harvard or Yale or Cambridge or Oxford universities and I took the leadership course, it would probably be the most expensive course. Today, we see how there's a dearth in leadership. I mean, I don't follow the news, but I do know of some big news. Like, what's going on in the world, which everyone knows about. For example, Trump and Biden. Without besmirching individuals, but when you think about it, a country like United States of America that has something like 305 million people or 310 million people, and to think that those two became the president of the United States of America is mind-boggling for the person who Trump is and for the person who Biden is. Like, what's going on? And the same thing, we look at England, for example, where there was 3 prime ministers last year within the space of, 4 weeks. One went out, another came in, then they went out, and another one came in. So we see there's problems in leadership. And the same thing when we think about Eretz Yisrael. Right now, for the first time, after 5 elections, there was a clear government majority, etc. So it seems there's a problem in deciding leadership. And in general, my shver was Reb Nosson Gorari. He was a big masculine chassidus, and he had a way of speaking that every single one of his words were measured and diamonds. So he said once to me, Amol b'gitracht, asfalt mekablen. Danach hab ich gesehen, asfalt mashpiyim. Und danach hab ich gesehen, asfalt im mekablen und im mashpiyim. I used to think that the problem is there are no followers, there are no good receivers, there are no good recipients. But then I realized there are no good teachers, there are no good influencers. And then I realized there are no good influencers, there are no good leaders, and there are no good followers. Now the truth is, it's a discussion. Is it the people that make the man? That means we have to choose a leader, give him support, and show that we're behind him, and that will make the leader. Or, which that's one side of the argument, we need people to appoint a leader and show the leader that that he has support. Or the other side of the coin is, but there's no leaders, there's no real leaders that are selfless, that have a real clarity, etc., etc. So there's what to discuss. But in any case, the relevance of what we're going to discuss today is to every single person. As the Rebbe says many times, and we're in Shnas Hakel this year, how the father, the teacher, the leader, the counselor, the head counselor, call it whatever you want, all of these are like the melech in the mitzvah of Hakel. So there's an aspect of the melech, the king, who leads the nation, that's in every single one of us. So every father is a leader in a certain sense, every teacher is a leader, etc., etc. So every single person has a leader dimension in him, and therefore we have to understand leadership. So today, I hope it's going to it's probably going to be a longer video because I want to talk about a couple of episodes in this week's Parsha where I love it when it's just clear. We have the stories. There's nothing as powerful as stories, as reality, as the Metzias Advarim. So in this week's Parsha, if I was giving a course in university, I would say leadership skills from Torah. So in this week's Parsha, we're going to see the main point of leadership is the idea that you're selfless and that you think of the other. And this comes across so many times in this week's Parsha. We say that the Alter Rebbe said, we have to live with the Parsha of the week. So in this week's Parsha, we're going to see 5 stories of Moshe Rabbeinu. So not only you're hit with this idea and this lesson once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. And then we'll see what comes as a result of that, his first revelation, Moshe Rabbeinu's first revelation. So, okay, let's start where we see what is the first time when we speak about Moshe Rabbeinu, and what's the first thing that the Torah says that he does. So the first thing that it says is Vayigdal Moshe, and Moshe grew up, Vayetzel Echov, and he went out to his brothers, Vayar b'sivleisa, and he saw the burdens. And then the pasuk says, Vayar ish Mitzri, and he saw a story with an Egyptian. But that's really another story. As the Medrash speaks about, Vayetzel Echov Vayar b'sivleisa, means that he went out to concentration camp Pisaim and Ramses, and he saw the slave labor, and he saw the taskmasters over there. Not an individual story with how he saw one whipping a Jew, which is another story, as we'll soon discuss, but the general idea. So we hear on these words, Vayigdal Moshe, Vayar b'sivleisam. First of all, you could say, Vayigdal Moshe. What's a sign of greatness? What's a sign of maturity? Vayigdal means he grew older, but Vayigdal means a gadol. What's a real mature person? That Vayetzel Echov, he's able to go out of himself and see the other person's life. But seeing is not enough. Vayar b'sivleisam. And what does Rashi say over here? One of my favorite Rashis, and I think we spoke about it once. Nosan eino v'liboy lios meitzar aleim. He focused his eyes and heart to be distressed over them. So that means like this. We've spoken about this also many times. There's sympathy and there's empathy. There's one thing that we say is chesed, and there's another thing that we say that's rachamim. According to Chassidus, we say that a cotton could have chesed, but it doesn't have rachamim. A child could be generous. A child could be very giving, but he doesn't have empathy. He can have sympathy, but he doesn't have empathy, because empathy comes with a maturity that not only you're able to give of yourself to another person, but you actually feel the other person. You can put yourself in that person's shoes. It's a whole nother level. But wait, there's more, and this is the beauty of Rashi. It cannot happen by itself. It's not automatic. When we say kindness, kindness means you see something and it could be a knee-jerk reaction that you're kind. But when it comes to empathy, sympathy could be automatic, so to speak. But when it comes to empathy, that means that you're really, really feeling what the other person is going through. Not that you have mercy, not that you're just giving him, but you're actually experiencing it. How does that happen? So Rashi says, Nosan eina v'libo lios meitzar aleim. You have to be focused. You have to, it has to come through an action. You have to concentrate. That when you see the other person's life, okay, give me 5 minutes. Give me 10 minutes. I don't know how long it will take. But it does mean you have to take a pause and now visualize what it means to be in that person's shoes. And that's empathy. So that's the first thing that it says over here. So we see Vayidam Moshe, what's the first sign of greatness? Empathy. And this is the trait of this week's Parsha, as we're going to see. We're discussing now the first leader of Am Yisrael, which is Moshe Rabbeinu. So we have to see what the Torah says. And in the space of a couple of psukim, they can count on your fingers, we have the whole story. So that's the first thing. Number one, he goes out of himself. Number two, he's in such a way that he can actually experience empathy, what the other person is going through. And then it says, that's not an act. It just means you felt what the other person's going through. But then it says, Vayar ish mitzri make ish ivri me'echov. But then he saw an Egyptian hitting another Jew. So you immediately, he's the prince of Egypt, he's brought up in royalty, and now he's going to do something which he's going to have to become eventually a fugitive. I forgot what it's called, I think bystander syndrome. There's a word, bystander something. It's a name, it's a coined term about, it's been documented, how many people could witness some sort of injustice and say, I don't want to get involved. I'm going to mind my own business. And over here we see by Moshe Rabbeinu always the opposite way. Get involved, get bothered, care, show compassion, and always stand for the underdog. And that's what it means over here. Vayarish mitzri make ish ivri me'echov. He right away identified it's a Jew, and he's being harassed, and he's being assaulted, and he's being oppressed. Do nothing. Chas v'sholem. And as we see from Rashi, this Arab, this Mitzri was doing terrible things, molesting. I don't want to get into it. See Rashi. And it's very, very relevant to the situation today in the world, where people are doing things and some people think, let's be quiet about it, let's cover it up. Over here, Moshe Rabbeinu takes action. Vayifen koi v'koi, vayar kein ish, no one was going to do anything, vayachas mitzri. So, story number 2, after Vayar b'sev loisam, is he takes action. Wherever there's an underdog, whenever there's a victim, we do something to stop the injustice. That's the second story. Then comes the third story. Right after that. Vayetze bayem hasheni v'hine shnei anoshim ivrim nitzim. Vayemel l'rosha lo masakar yecha. There's a reason why the Torah says the story right after, because they witnessed what Moshe Rabbeinu did, even though Moshe Rabbeinu thought that no one had seen. But the message over here is, the next day he goes out and he sees 2 Jews having an argument. But these 2 Jews happen to be nasty characters, difficult people. So, he could also say, don't get involved. But what's bothering him? Really 2 things. Number 1, lo masakar. You're physically raising your hands to another Jew. Rahman al-Tzlan. That's number 1. Now, even though they're both nasty, and Moshe Rabbeinu knows it, but you know what? When you see 2 Jews arguing, it's just something's wrong. It's not the way it should be. It should bother you if 2 people are on a machlokes. Like it says, L'gaba Aaron, oyev shalom v'roidev shalom. So when you see 2 people having an argument, you try to bring peace. But the pasuk stresses the main thing is, first of all, prevent the other person from getting harmed physically. So Moshe does something. And then, does he get it? Etc., etc. So he gets involved, which he could have easily just been a bystander. And what does he get in return? Does anybody give me a shakoyach? Of course not. He gets harassed because of it. So that's the third story. Moshe sees something. He's not the bystander. On the contrary, he takes action. Because wherever there's injustice, We have to take a stand and do whatever we can to bring benefit. Then comes the next story. Right after that, he runs away and he goes to Midian, and then he comes to the well. And it says that Yisro had 7 daughters, and they drew water. But Vayaveyu Haroyim, shepherds came, Vayigarshum. And what does the pasuk say? Vayokom Moshe. The words Vayokom Moshe means he took a stand. Vayishion, and he helped them. Vayashkes Tzainam. Not only he stood up for the daughters, but then he actually physically, manually got involved and he watered the sheep. So here again, the stranger just came to town. Who are you? Why are you getting involved? You're so annoying. You're such a do-gooder. The stranger just came to town, and the shepherds, Loshen Rabim, there's a whole gang, and the whole gang is preying on weaker people, Yisro's daughters. And Moshe Rabbeinu, one man, stands up to these people and tells them, I'm sorry. He stands up to them and he prevents them from harassing and annoying and doing whatever they wanted to do to Yisro's daughter. And from the next time when the daughters repeated to Yisro, it seems, I think, if I may say so, a more powerful lashon. Batemana ish mitzri hitzilonu. Before the pasuk says vayishion, which sometimes can be translated as he helped, but hitzilonu means he rescued us, he saved us. It's a bit more powerful, I would think, and that implies that who knows to what degree these shepherds were bringing harm to Yisro's daughters. In any case, so Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't sit by, but he gets involved. So that's number 4. Number 1, Vayar b'sevleisam. Number 2, Vayachas HaMitzri. Number 3, when he saw the 2 people arguing, Das Ma'aviran. Number 4, he pushes away the shepherds that are starting with Yisro's daughters. And number 5, where the pasuk then continues, Moshe hayaroyes tzoyin Yisrael. This is the beginning of the redemption, where it speaks about the king and Vayomas Melech Mitzrayim, Vayonchu b'nei Yisrael. It got even worse, and then it says the whole story with Moshe and the snare, as we'll soon talk about, and then the Eibishter chooses him as the leader after much dialogue back and forth. And everyone knows why is the pasuk saying Moshe hayaroyeh? Because that's the introduction to the whole story. Who is the future Jewish leader? A shepherd of lambs, of sheep. And everyone knows the 2 midrashim. One midrash is that there was one lamb that ran away, and that Moshe Rabbeinu ran after the one lamb. It's a pasuk in Tehillim also. And then he actually picked up the lamb and physically carried him back to the rest of the flock. And there's another medrash that says, similar by David HaMelech, that Moshe Rabbeinu was careful in how he dealt with the youngest lambs, the middle-aged ones, and the seniors. Each one eating of the grass that was the most befitting to them, the degree of how hard the grass was on the ground. So that's how he made the system of how they were feeding. So the medrash says, because the Eibishter saw how Moshe Rabbeinu was a royei neman, a faithful shepherd, therefore he was chosen to be the leader of Klal Yisrael. So obviously, you could say, what's the most important trait in being a Jewish leader? So if you say a good heart, selfless, this is the most essential. Of course, it's a lot more than that. You have to be able to influence. You have to be able to make a team. You have to be the greatest. There's nothing to talk about of all of them, etc., etc. But if we talk about the most essential, it means that you're full of compassion, care, and concern, kindness, etc. And I once heard a very good saying, and I think I once said this before, where it says, in secular literature, who's the hero? The one who slays the dragon and gets the girl. And in Kedusha and in Torah, Who's the hero? The Jewish heroes are shepherds that chase after the lamb and nurture them faithfully. So one of them stresses physical prowess, and the other stresses character, that it's about selflessness, and it's about care, compassion, and concern. Now, before we get to the snare, later on in the Parsha, there's a Balat Turim that makes this very clear, and the Balat Turim, where the Balat Turim says in the Pasuk, Vayamein ha'om, that the nation believed in Moshe. And the Balat Turim says, Vayamein, Beis b'Mesayis. This word, Vayamein, says twice. Vayamein ha'om, over here, about Moshe, that they believed in Moshe. Vayamin Achish b'David, and Achish believed David. And then the Balat Turim says like this: Shnei panosim tovim amdu Yisrael. Two good leaders were for the Jewish nation, Moshe and David, and both of them are shepherds, by the way. Moshe Omar Mechenina. Moshe told the Eibishter, erase me from the Torah, which means if you're going to punish the Jewish people, punish me. In other words, take me out of the Torah. There's no me without the people. When the Eibishter punished the Jewish people, David HaMelech said, but these flock, what do they do? He's referring to the Yidden. Tehina yotcha bi, hurt me, don't hurt them. So in other words, by both Moshe and by both David, we see that the dedication and devotion to the followers is absolute. And absolute means they always come first. They're serving the public. They're completely selfless. So because they believe in the people and they love the people, so the Balat Turim makes clear, because they believe in the followers, therefore the followers believe in them, and therefore they're the greatest leaders. So the greatest leaders are the ones built on selflessness, ready to give themselves over, Mesiras Nefesh, completely for the followers. Shnei parnosim nemonim hoyu, they were totally loyal to the flock. Ulakach heminu vahem, they believed in the people. They gave themselves over for the people. They are better than me. Harm me, not them. And therefore, reciprocally, they believed in Moshe and David. So it's a clear Balat Turim. Now I want to go to the snare. So what's the first revelation that Moshe Rabbeinu has after this whole story? The first revelation he has from the Eibishter, the first encounter he has with the Eibishter is the snare. What's the message of the snare? So first I'm going to say something which is in connection to everything we said before. Since Moshe Rabbeinu went out of himself, he put himself in their shoes. So what does the Eibishter tell Moshe? What does Rashi say? Basneh. Why was it a thorn bush? Just like Moshe Rabbeinu went out of himself and felt the pain of the Yidden, so too there's a Medrash that says that he felt the whip, the lashes of the whip. That's how much he wanted to feel their situation. So too the Eibishter tells Moshe, Mida Keneged Mida, Hashem is with us. He feels the pain, whatever that means. That's why it's thorns. Thorns are painful if you get stuck with a thorn. And the Eibush is telling Moshe, I feel the pain of Klal Yisrael. Which that's a Chiddush Nifla. You could think God is indifferent. There's the God of the philosophers. To say he has feelings, that's a degradation. That shows on a lowliness, on a tzimtzum. And here we're saying, no. You know what? Just like you felt the pain, I want you to know that when it comes to Klal Yisrael, the first thing every Yid has to know, I'm with you. I'm not indifferent. I also feel the pain. So that's one message. And this message comes to everything that came before. But this week, someone told me a pshat, one of the pshatim in the Bar Benel, that he says on Vasnein and Ucha, and I think it's unbelievable, and it's very connected to leadership. You know, leadership is one of the most hard jobs. There's a saying I once read, it could be I mentioned this already before, that some football coach told his team, we don't got to beat the other team, we just got to wear him down. And I love that quote, and it's very true, and I see it in life, and I think all parents and all teachers and educators and all leaders could say the same thing, something similar, that we don't got to beat the leader or the teacher, we just got to wear him down, i.e., students and children could sometimes wear down their parents and their teachers, willingly or unwillingly, but that's the way it is. You get worn down. And we see also that this is the lesson from the first story with Dasav Avriyan. His first encounter with another Yid. Because first it says, Vayarbis Loisam, and then the first dialogue that Moshe Rabbeinu has with another Yid, where he sees a machlekes going on. Every two Jews, there's three opinions. So he sees two Jews having an argument, and he's saying, come on, you don't have to have an argument. We can get along. So he's trying to prevent, he wants to defuse the argument so it shouldn't get violent, it shouldn't get physical. And what does he get for it? A smack in the face, figuratively speaking. Butt out, mind your own business. So that's what happens many times in life. When you want to take action, you don't get appreciated for it, you don't get a thank you for it, you get a slap in the face. So when it comes to leadership, in today's society, and this is so mind-boggling, the Pshat Dabar, there's a term, it's called burnout. And everybody speaks about it, how if you're teaching long enough, or if you're a leader long enough, we suffer from burnout. Guess what the Abarbanel says, Pshat, Vasneinenu Uchal. That this was a message from Moshe Rabbeinu, that even though you will be a leader, and you're going to have to deal with who knows what, Meraglim, Koirach, Maimerolim, yada, yada, yada. It's the hardest job. It's mamish, unimaginable, the hardships of being a leader. Therefore, the Eibishter is maftiach. And he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, you will never burn out. There's taka fire. There's taka, it's not easy. It's going to be a rough ride. But nevertheless, you should know. Moshe Rabbeinu, you could do it. You have what it takes. The resilience, the courage, the stamina, etc., to go through whatever it's going to entail. And I'm telling you now, Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm letting you know that you will thrive, even though it's going to be a rough ride. So I think it's a amazing lesson. In other words, Moshe Rabbeinu, you will never reach burnout. It's taka fire, but you're never burning out. The connection, we don't have to explain all the lessons that we just spoke about. It's obvious. And now just to connect it to the Alter Rebbe and to the Rambam. I said this once before, I believe the Rambam was the first leader that was global. He was in Spain, he was in Egypt, and he dealt with questions that were around the globe in letters, and he writes in the Akdama that the Sefer's Kikotten v'Godel, his target audience wasn't only the people of his country, his target audience is the entire Klal Yisrael. So he's writing a work which is going to help everyone. And the Rambam also, by the way, speaks about his daily schedule. You could say he had no life, being a doctor and dealing with patients all the time, etc., etc. So in the Rambam we see very much the way he's living every minute of his life, thinking about the Klal, others, and how to help others. That's the Rambam. And the same thing the Alter Rebbe, the fact that he said that this Sefer, the whole purpose of the Sefer, is Ki Korev Elecha Dov Meir. He wrote a Sefer to make Yiddishkeit more accessible, more relatable to every single person in a real way. And he writes also in his Akdama that it's the Tshuvas al Kol HaShailas, and it's based and following Asher gil lefone kol tolumas leimi, asher diber shel chibur yemotze benenu. So he writes in the Akdam himself that there was affection between him and his followers. He was there always, always, for decades, listening to their innermost issues and problems. And then afterwards, he recorded it, and he wrote the Sefer that was going to help everyone. He wrote that the Sefer is the solution. So imagine a person needs advice. A person, any spiritually seeking searcher or seeker, which any person really sooner or later comes to that realm, that area where he's looking for meaning and for purpose. And this is the Sefer, they said, that will help you find meaning and purpose in a way that will be relatable to you, and you'll feel that you found the answer. So we see from Moshe Rabbeinu, from the Rambam, and from the Alter Rebbe, what does it mean leadership, how much you have to be involved with your flock, and the Eibusher should help that each and every single one of us should take the lessons that we learn from all of these leaders, and we'll be better parents, we'll be better fathers, we'll be better teachers, and we'll be better Yidden all around in our interpersonal relationships with every single other person. The Eibusher helfen, the Schus von der Baal, Yemai, Lula, der Rambam. So Peil sein Yeshuas bekehren Haaretz. Adi alle Yidden, was davon geholfen werden, und was für ihnen sollen es sein. Sie in Bonne, Chayim, Mezene, sollen geholfen werden, take from a yad, Mamish. Posting from my home, Bez Shem Yisborich, Good Shabbos, your man in Melbourne.